In this lecture, let us discuss about 4P framework in software engineering. So this framework, it consists of four key dimensions: people, product, process, and project. Each dimension plays a critical role in ensuring the successful delivery of software projects. So first one is people. It refers to the individuals involved in the software development process. So here individual can be the developer or a project manager, tester, stakeholders. Okay, he can be anyone. So first one is stakeholders. So here every software project is populated by stakeholders. So they can be categorized into one of the five constituencies. So here you can see four important constituencies out of five. So coming to the first one, senior managers. So their role is to define the business issues. So these issues, they play a major role or they can have significant impact on the project. And then technical managers or project managers. So their task is to plan. So planning will be done and they'll motivate the members in a team, organization, then control the practitioners who do this software work. Then practitioners. So they mainly deliver all the necessary skills that are required to develop a software project. And then customers. So we already know customer is the one who will provide requirements to the developer. So customers here, they'll specify the requirements for the software and also other stakeholders. So the stakeholders who are not having any special interest in the outcome, so they even comes under this constituency. And the last one is end user. So here end user is nothing but the person who interact with the software once it is released for the production use. Second one is team leaders. So here the role of project manager involves several dimensions. So if you take the first one, that is problem solving. Problem solving means actively here the project manager, he should monitor project progress to identify potential problems early. And also he can use the data and analytics to understand root causes and develop effective solutions. Then managerial identity, second one. Here, this project manager, he should develop a personal leadership style that inspires confidence and motivates the team. And also, he need to clearly define their role within the project and also how it interacts with team dynamics and organizational goals. Third one is achievement. A project manager, he need to establish clear, measurable objectives for the team, ensuring everyone understand the targets. And also he need to implement mechanisms to assess team performance, celebrating successes and identifying areas for improvement. Then influence and team building. So here this manager, he need to build relationship with the stakeholders to understand their needs and secure their support. Also, he need to address the conflicts promptly and constructively, maintaining team cohesion and focus. Third one is the software team. So there are so many organizational structures for software development, right? So if you take the seven project factors here, first one is difficulty of the problem to be solved. So first, we need to identify how difficult the problem is and then find out size of the resultant programs. So you can find out the size of the program by using either function point or total number of lines of code. So by seeing the length of the code and also the time that the team will stay together with team lifetime and degree. So degree to which the problem can be modularized, how the project can be divided into multiple modules. Then required quality and reliability. Next, rigidity of the delivery date. So you need to deliver the project within the given date. That is most important, right? Degree of sociability, that is nothing but communication required for the project. Second term in the 4P framework is product. So product, it mainly represents software or the system being developed. So where will include all the necessary features, functionalities and quality attributes. The first software project management activity is the determination of the software scope, and this scope can be defined by answering various questions. First one is the context. So here we need to answer, how does the software to be built fit into the larger system, product or business context, and what are the necessary constraints that should be imposed as a result of the context. As information objectives, here we need to answer what customer viable data objects are produced as a result from the software, and also what are the different data objects that are required for the input. Then third one is function and performance. So here, what function does the software perform to transform the input data into output? So we need to find out that function, and we need to check if any special performance characteristics needs to be addressed. Here we have problem decomposition, which is nothing but breaking down a complex problem into smaller and more manageable subproblems. This process facilitates understanding, design, implementation, and maintenance. So, what is the first task in problem decomposition? First step is to identify the problem, right? And after that, you need to break down the problem. So, divide the problem into smaller functions or features. Or you can identify the data structures involved and then break them down into manageable components. Then you need to define subproblems. So for each smaller component which we divided before, you need to define specific tasks or requirements. And again, after that, you need to establish the interfaces. Then we need to give priority to the tasks. So here we'll decide the order of implementation based on dependencies. And implementation, so develop each component independently, ensuring they'll integrate well and perform their designated functions. So after implementation, assess the solution for performance and scalability. So after that, you need to make necessary adjustments to the decomposition as needed. So decomposition, it can be mainly applied in two major areas, that is the functionality and the information that must be delivered, as well as a process that will be used to deliver it. Third term in 4P framework is the process. So this can be defined as the methodologies and practices used to develop the software product. So it can be either a workflow, tools and the techniques employed. And it represents the methodologies used to guide the software development effort, like agile, waterfall or DevOps. The framework activities that characterize the software process are applicable to all the software projects. The problem is to select the process model that is most appropriate for the software to be engineered by your project team. So, your team should decide which process model is the most appropriate for customers who have requested the product and the people who will do the work. Also, the characteristics of the product itself and the project environment in which the software team works. So, once a process model has been selected, then the team should define preliminary project plan based on the set of process framework activities. And once the planning is done, process decomposition begins. So, complete plan reflecting the work tasks required to populate the framework activity must be created. So, if you take the so here, if you see this melding the product and process, so this is nothing but usually the project planning begins with a melding of the product and process. Each function to be engineered by your team must pass through a set of framework activities that have been defined for your software organization. So assume that the organization has adopted the generic framework activities. So here you can see the generic framework activities: communication, planning, modeling, construction, and deployment. Team members who work on a product function will apply each of the framework activity to it. Each major product function is represented in the left hand side. So these are the product functions. So this table or this matrix was generated for word processing software. So this, it just looks like this. Framework activities, they are represented in the top row. You can see the five framework activities. And software engineering work tasks, they would be entered in the following rows. So here, corresponding to the text input. So here values will be entered for planning, for communication, planning, modeling, construction, and deployment. Similarly, for editing, automatic copy edit, page layout capability, automatic indexing and TOC, file management, document production. For everything, corresponding values will be represented here. Okay, corresponding to these product functions. So here the job of the project manager is to estimate resource requirements for each matrix cell, start and end dates for the tasks associated with each cell, and work products to be produced as a consequence of each tasks. So those values will be represented here. Process decomposition, it mainly involves breaking down complex software development process into smaller manageable components. So here we can say that this is structured approach to process decomposition. Then have to do this process decomposition. First thing is you need to define the overall process. So define overall process where we'll start by outlining the high level software development process like SDLC phases, right? Then second task is to identify major activities. Identify major activities. So here we need to break the overall process into major activities within the SDLC phase. So what are they? Requirement gathering, design, implementation, testing, deployment, maintenance. All of them can be considered in this phase. And the third step is you need to decompose the activities. So the activities which were identified in the second step, those activities will be decomposed. So break down each major activity into smaller tasks. So for example, if you take coding, so coding can be decomposed into writing code for specific features, then performing unit testing, and then documenting code. In that way, you need to decompose the activity. And the fourth step is we need to establish relationship between. So establish relationship and dependencies. So identify how the tasks relate to each other. So we need to find out how they are depending on each other, which helps in understanding the order of execution and potential bottlenecks. And fifth step is you need to assign roles and responsibilities. Assign roles and responsibilities. So define who is responsible for each task, which includes roles like project manager, developer. So based on their skills, you need to find out who is eligible for that respective role. So role can be project manager, developer, tester, or designer, etc. Next, you need to determine inputs and outputs in step 6. So for each task, specify inputs required and expected outputs. So after that, documentation. So create flowcharts or diagrams to visually represent the decomposed process. So this documentation helps in communication and understanding among team members. Process decomposition, it commences when the project manager asks, how do we accomplish this framework activity? So here, the answer for this is first you need to develop list of clarification issues, then meet with stakeholders in order to, so developer he need to meet the stakeholders. So to find out or to get more clarity about the issues. Then jointly develop a statement of scope, review the statement of scope with all the concerned issues, and finally you can modify the statement also if required. Fourth term in 4P framework is project. Clearly outline the project scope, including objectives, deliverables, and boundaries to avoid scope creep. Develop a project timeline with milestones and deadlines for each phase and task. estimate project cost, allocate resources, and monitor expenses throughout the project life cycle. So here we need to include all these things: scope, timeline, and budget. 10 signs that indicate project is in danger are: first thing is software people don't understand their customer needs. Here, first thing is software people or the developers, they should understand what exactly the customer is asking for. Otherwise, if they develop something else instead of the one which the customer is asking for, then at the end, customer he may not accept the project. Product scope is poorly defined. So, if the scope of the product is not defined properly, then also issues arise. Changes are managed poorly. Uncontrolled changes or additions to project requirements without proper assessment can strain resources as well as timelines. Chosen technology changes. Say, assume that initially technology considered for project development was something, and after that, due to changes in the requirements of the customers or because of any other reasons, if there is change in the technology, then also the developer he should take care of that problem also. He should manage it properly. Business needs change or ill defined. So, if the business needs are not defined properly, or if the deadlines are unrealistic, frequent delays in meeting project milestones or deadlines can signal underlying issues. Users are resistant, or sponsorship is lost, or the project team lacks people with appropriate skills. So, if the people who are involved in the project they are not having necessary skills for project development, then it impacts the quality of the project. Managers avoid best practices. So, if the managers are not using the best practices or the lessons learned from the past experiences or past projects, then also problems arise. Failure to identify, assess, and address potential risk can lead to crises that threaten project success. Reel suggests a five-part common sense approach to software projects. First one is start on the right foot. This is accomplished by working hard to understand the problem that is to be solved and then setting realistic objectives and expectations for everyone who is involved in the project. Next, maintain momentum. Many projects get off to a good start and then slowly disintegrate. To maintain momentum, the project manager must provide incentives to keep turnover of personnel to an absolute minimum. The team should emphasize quality in every task it performs, and the senior management should do everything possible to stay out of team's way. Then track the progress. For a software project, progress is tracked as work products are produced and approved as part of quality assurance activity. Make smart decisions. Decisions of the project manager and the software team should be to keep it simple. Whenever possible, decide to use commercial off the shelf software or existing software components or patterns. Decide to avoid custom interfaces when standard approaches are available. Decide to identify and then avoid obvious risks, and decide to allocate more time than you think is needed to complex or risky tasks. Then conduct a postmortem analysis, establish a consistent mechanism for extracting lessons learned for each project. Evaluate the plan and actual schedules, collect and analyze software project metrics, get feedback from team members and customers, and record findings in written form.